My name is Philippe Froud. I'm a professor in the School of Political Studies here at the University of Ottawa. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our event titled Decolonial Research and Knowledge, Perspectives on Ceremonial Transformations and Climate Resilience. I think particularly for an event on decolonial thinking and practice, it was helpful for us to be reminded that we are on unceded land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe here in Ottawa. The way we're going to proceed, we have two talks by Dr. Ranjan Datta and Dr. Chapula today, and they will both be speaking for roughly 20 minutes. And then we will have roughly 45 minutes remain for Q&A. The event will be in English, but I will try, if there are questions in French, I will do my absolute best to try and be a faithful translator. We also have people joining us online, so we'll be tracking questions that are in the webinar chat on Zoom. And so we look forward to a enriching discussion. So the very first presentation, Dr. Ranjan Datta on anti-racist and decolonial research as a ceremonial transformation from a color perspective.
Is it okay if I stand and talk? Okay, thank you so much. Really appreciate for this opportunity. Great to meet you all. Today, I'm going to discuss about my journey instead of any specific research presentation, so that you can get some glimpse about how my decolonial journey was, so that you can connect and also we can collectively discuss. So basically, we're going to divide in three sections. First is, what are the meanings of decolonial research from my 17 years of research in various countries, including Canada, and what are the challenges within from the anti-racist and decolonial perspective. I will give two examples from my research and give some time or example from the Dr. Chapula, and also how to overcome those challenges from my last 15 years of experience that I had an opportunity to learn. So when we are talking about land acknowledgement, Philip also did land acknowledgement. Thank you, Philip. And also, I would like to acknowledge from decolonial perspective, what is the meanings of acknowledgement through my own journey of learning. So in my research or my understanding, when we acknowledge, we need to acknowledge that all indigenous knowledge, land-based knowledge, minority land knowledge all over the world. Because as you know, if you look at the history of the colonization, how many years it is? Maybe 400 or 500 or maybe 2000 years. Let's say 2000 years of the history. But look at the history of the environment sustainability from the millions of years. Just exclude 2000 or 3000 years of history, the amount of damage we made by the name of development, by the name of civilization, is equivalent to is more than the millions of years of sustainability. That's why we need to understand how land-based people, local people, and indigenous people has been keeping their land sustainable for thousands of or millions of years. That's why we need to understand the importance of land-based knowledge in indigenous knowledge from all over the world or the land you are coming from. The second, we need to understand that when we are talking about decolonization, decolonization is not limited within the colonial period, only 2000 or a couple of hundred years. So decolonization, we need to understand that there was, before colonization, thousands of years of sustainability. If the land we are standing on, if you look at these thousands of years of this land, many indigenous people, they have been keeping their land very sustainable. So we need to explore the colonization and also pre-colonization and what is happening now. That's why I always ask three questions when we are talking about decolonization. What was here? What is happening now? And what should happen? Then we need to understand how the land-based history, land-based knowledge as a scientific knowledge. because the land-based knowledge has been sustainable for thousands of years. That's why in traditional knowledge, land-based knowledge doesn't need any validation from the Western science because it's already proven the science. If we understand the meaning of science to solving the problem, meaning of science finding the solution. But if you think meaning of science is controlling and making power, then it's a different thought. That's what is happening in the settler colonialism. The meaning of science has been colonized. Meaning of research has been colonized. That's why Maori indigenous scholar, Dr. Linda Smith, she said, research became a mosquito, suck your blood, then live. And we also became a mosquito, right? And the research from the community that I had opportunity to learn, they say research is fear, research is a danger because research is a foreign bird. They steal knowledge and afterwards they claim as a discovery. And they call it foreign bird. They come here, take the food, then leave, they never show up. Even though show up, they call it is their knowledge. So that's why we need to decolonize the meaning of research. The meaning of research is not that indigenous people or land-based people, they haven't done it. They have been doing meaning of research for very differently or understanding development very differently. That's why all stories in my research, land-based stories are scientific stories. And indigenous elders, knowledge keepers, and the local people, I consider in my research, they are the scientists because they know what is best for their community. They know what is the best for their future generation. They are not claiming they are scientists for all over the world. They are saying, I know what is the best for my land. So that's why in my research, I politically situate myself indigenous elders, knowledge keepers, land-based people, they are the scientists for their knowledge. And I also would like to request you to acknowledge the land you are coming from, the land you are standing on. So I would like to situate myself, who I am, why I'm doing this research. So I born in minority community in Bangladesh. When I'm talking about minority, those who have been land-based, grew up in land-based culture, born in land-based family, those who had an opportunity to learn from the land. So I born in minority community in back home, and we learn the land is our God. Every morning we used to pray to the sun, water, and the relationship we developed. It was kind of our God is lives with us. We stay together. Our God is our family member. It's not outside from me or from my land-based culture. However, when I went to the school and the university, I didn't have the opportunity to learn those cultures at all. To understanding why my land-based culture is significant for building my food security or food sovereignty. I didn't have any opportunity. By the name of science, in the anthropology, sociology, I was told that we have to be objectives. Otherwise, we'll be biased. We didn't have any opportunity to speak the community needs. Even how my father got killed or other indigenous or minority people getting killed every day because they wanted to protect their traditional land-based culture. So people, those who are fighting to protect their land and land-based culture, they became criminal in their own land. So I was, when I finished my bachelor degree, I was working for the research organization in my back home, Bangladesh. And I was trying to learn lots of stories, including my family. What happened to this land? How the many community members that got killed. When I done my research, I was giving lots of statistics to the many indigenous or minority communities. Then my mom told me, I told you lots of stories, how our land has been taken, how that our family member has been got killed. And you are giving me the numbers. What I'm going to do with these numbers? But that's the way I got training, that I have to be objectives. I have to understand, make a balance between various groups, but do not take the positionality, otherwise I will be biased. I didn't get this answer. Even my research was not making me happy what I'm doing. I was recolonizing my own family, the community member, or other people for my own job. And my job as a researcher, they are using me as a tool for recolonizing or getting the fund from the other agencies. So I became a tools of the colonization. But I was asking this question, had the opportunity to learn from the anthropology from various, from the Europe, even my masters from US, I didn't get those answers. Who I am, what I should do, how I can speak who I am, what is my emotion, how I can talk, how I can transform my emotion, my community need as a researcher. I didn't get those answers. So I was working, understanding the meanings of hybridity from post-colonial theorist Homi Bhabha, Gayatri Spivak, subalternity, to understand. But I didn't get those answers until I came to University of Saskatchewan and had the opportunity to learn from the Indigenous elders, knowledge keeper from TD6 territory. I had the first time I had the opportunity to learn, I had to become land. My four months job was to building relationship with the moon. When I was looking to the moon, I was looking only for the buildings because I was not trained how to make relationship with the moon. But the same year, my mom passed away. And it's reminding me how I used to learn from my mom, all the knowledge. So I was transforming that knowledge as a significant knowledge that I didn't get opportunity to learn the colonial institution. I was using Sean Wilson, Dr. Sean Wilson, Maggie Kovach, and Linda Smith work, how to build a relationship, how to understand my relationship with the land. What is the meaning of land? Land is what we used to learn from our land-based culture. Land is my family. Land is my body. Land is my God. So when I'm talking about land, don't just frame the land as a colonial format. Land means everything. It's count, rock, moon, sun, water, everything. So that was the little bit explanation about how I became hybrid ways of understanding the meanings of land and meanings of our responsibility. So afterwards, I had opportunity to learn from the various indigenous community in Saskatchewan, currently in Alberta. And I'm also learning with various South Asian land-based people, particularly Bangladesh, India, and Nepal. And while also working various indigenous communities, Cree, Dene, and Kainai in Alberta, and also opportunity to work with Arctic indigenous community. When we are talking about colonization, talking about the meanings of land, you can see the meanings of colonization, what is going on in Bangladesh, is not so much different what is going on in Arctic, or what is going on TD6 territory or TD7 territory. All forms of settler colonialism is continuously making ecocide, continuously making the genocide. That's why, as a decolonial researcher, it's a political responsibility to understand our position. That's why it's important to situate ourselves who we are and who we need to be. So I would like to share a couple of the examples when I was talking about the meaning of decolonization. And meaning of decolonization have various meanings. But last 17 years, couple of the perspective came in my journey that several times is very common from the global south and global north. For example, when we are talking about meaning of decolonization, particularly in climate change research or environmental justice research, we need to talk about indigenous land rights or land back. When we are talking about land back, it's not I'm giving my land to you and you can use whatever way you want. Meanings of land back to me is our obligation to the land, our responsibility to the land. And the second perspective came from various community-based research to understand that our ways of doing the colonial setting, the meaning of science, meaning of research is not even working for the researcher, or even not making happy researcher like me, how is going to be helpful for the community that we are working. That's why we need to decolonize our ways of knowing and ways of doing. Another perspective that I have learned, we need to learn, respect and honor indigenous and local land-based ways of doing because it's already proven science. As a settler of color, after coming to the Canada, Truth and Reconciliation 94 call for action actually is giving the guideline how we can be useful tools to build the solidarity or understanding our responsibility as a researcher. One of the perspectives I have learned from Global South and Global North, indigenous people, local people, they never deny Western knowledge. Don't get me wrong, they never deny. Western knowledge is so important. The problem is that Western knowledge has been using indigenous people, land-based people to maintaining the colonial structure. That's the problem. Whereas indigenous people or land-based people, they want to use Western knowledge to tool solving the problem. So that's why we need to create the meaningful bridge between Western knowledge and indigenous or land-based knowledge so that indigenous or land-based people, they can use it to solving the problem. When we are talking about land or climate change, we cannot separate with to protect our responsibility to protect the land, water, culture, and language. It's everything interconnected. So as we have discussed about the meaning of the decolonization from my own journey, I would like to share some of the challenges that I have learned from the community, from my last 17 years of journey. First challenges that I have learned, the community thing, we have many misconceptions about meaning of research that I explained previously. Meaning of development. What is the meaning of development? The concept of development, it became oppression to the community. Concept of climate solution became another recolonial tools for recolonizing the indigenous and minority community because we don't understand meaning of that development is about progress, is about the solving the problem. But whereas meaning of development for many indigenous and for the researcher became the make profit maximization. So that's why we need to understand we have many miscommunication within ourselves. Second understanding is when we are talking about decolonization, many researchers, they use the decolonization as a tools, even community-based researcher, but they don't decolonize themselves who they are and who they need to be. So that is the significant challenge for the community they have been facing from various researchers. Another aspect is many researchers that fail to accommodate the meaning of self-governance, indigenous governance that the community has been doing for a long time. And when the researchers they talk with the one elder and two elder and check the box. Whereas land varies land to land, community to community, elder to elder. And this is the beauty of multiple ways of knowing. If you look at the department, it's one department, political studies or the environmental studies that I came from, how many faculty within the department? And if we have 10 faculty, have 10 different worldviews, how do we think one elder would know everything? So that's why, according to the community, the researcher, those who think they don't understand the meaning of collaboration for multiple ways of knowing. Another perspective, many researchers, they think settler colonialism is past, but settler colonialism is alive within our training, within our understanding, and within our research. Last but not least important, racism is alive within our practice. So for doing my research, I have been using relational theoretical framework. That means once we go to the community, they always call us relative. What does it mean? Brother or my relative? It means once we become relative, we become responsible to each other. We are not saying this is my data, my innovation, my discovery. It's our research. And I, as a researcher, has responsibility to whatever we are doing. We have to use it in a way is meaningful to the community. So I have been using also anti-racist theoretical framework. What does it mean? Anti-racist theoretical framework for me particularly to speak up for the justice, for the land, for the plant, animal, and also the minority and indigenous community that has been suffering. That is the political stand for me that I have been using, that when I came here, when I was getting the colonial education, I didn't know about it. I didn't know who I am. The anti-racist theoretical framework is for me to reclaiming who I am and who I need to be. And I've been using indigenous. Since I'm not indigenous here, in the land I'm standing on, maybe many of you are not indigenous, but we have a responsibility to protect the land and water. And that is the responsibility make us indigenous. According to indigenous scholars, Dr. Sean Wilson, Dr. Linda Smith, Maori indigenous scholar, we all have to take the responsibility. Then we become the indigenous. That means we have a responsibility to the land and people. And also I have been using land-based theoretical framework. That means to decolonize the meanings of land, the meanings of our responsibility to the land. For doing this research, I have been using the community engaged research that I have been investing 15 years to build my relationship with the various indigenous community in TD6 territory, TD7 territory, not because I want to help, because I want to create my own belongingness to the land that I am living on. So it's my own benefit that helping me on my decolonial theory to make to create my own belongingness and my future generation. I have been using the decolonial ways of participatory action research. I have to go quick. So these are the methods that I have been using. So I would like to give one example from my back home. Why relational meanings of understanding land is important for the climate change. As you can see in the top part of the photo, is a monoculture of forest. It's one example that hundreds of mountain that is occupied by the outside in Chittagong Hill Tracts, Bangladesh. Whereas diversity only 3%. In the bottom part is indigenous ways of maintaining the forest. And it's 97% diversity. When in 2002, when I went there, if you dig only 5 feet, you can get the water. If you go there, you have to dig 450 feet. And indigenous people, they don't have water now. They don't have food. So once they are occupying the top part of the forest, what is happening? It's not only displacing the human, displacing non-human, all the diversity that indigenous people and minority people, they can automatically force to diverse. That's why indigenous people, the current ways of the forest management is became the exploitation. So meaning of environmental sustainability for them or climate justice is to cultural oriented practice. Yes, environmental, another community members say is our traditional cultivation, because that has been doing for hundreds of years. And one of the elders say our land water rights is climate justice. Without land rights, everything become tokenization. So I want to give another quick example from my another research. So land, according to the P and DNA First Nation community, I was wondering, asking the elder, what is the meaning of land? The elder say, land is not the way you understand or the way you refer. Land means everything. So one of the youth that drew the meaning of land 8 years old. As you can see, the meaning of land is caribou, lake, birds, plant, everything counts as a land. And well, this is another story actually I wrote for article, maybe I can share later on. The meaning of climate change is collaborative ways of knowing. Learning from the elder, learning from the land, learning from the plant, learning from each other. And elder was talking about traditional land-based knowledge, how it is important for the dealing with the climate, human-created climate crisis. So this is the quick example I would like to do. I was doing how pipeline leak created impact on the indigenous communities. So in such, the pipeline leak, the 75% time we don't know because it's hidden information. According to CBC, 2000 to 2019, there was 18.9 billion oil leak happened only in Saskatchewan. And how big 18.9 billion is? Most time we talk about million, billion. If we calculate 2.6 millions of liter equivalent to one Olympic size swimming pool, it is equivalent to 7,300 Olympic size of swimming pool oil leak happened only in Saskatchewan. And when oil leak happened, it's not only impacting the land, it's impact everything. That's why when we talk about the meaning, how the oil leak happened to the water, the elders say, your ways of understanding impact is colonial. Because it's not only impacting the water, it's impacting everything. Soil, land, health, water, everything. That's why we need to decolonize the way we understand the impact, scientific evaluation. Many times, and it impacts 7 generations, the past 3 generations, and this impact is going to be next 3 generations because of the current generation profit maximization. Sorry, I'm going fast because we don't have time. So many times from the government or industries, they false claim. They didn't agree that there was an oil leak happened. They learned from the radio or when they did many research done from the university, industries, and government. None of the researchers that talk with the community member. Or even though they spoke only one person. And the sample size, they took that is less affected area. So they hire indigenous people, they hire their own researcher, they see their impact is seriously. And other scientific other research from the government industry, they said, no, your land is, water is fine. Then the elder asked me, is not the science is neutral? Why 2 scientists is giving us 2 different information? That's why we lost the trust from the science. And we colonized the research because we wanted to make a profit from it. Because it's a gaining instead of solving the problem. So indigenous people, they didn't talk about only problem. They know the solution. Elders, knowledge keeper, they wanted to guide us according to 3D responsibilities. They want us to use the Western knowledge to this so that they can solve the problem. They want us to train their youth through the elders so that their youth can take the lead. So right information at the right time, regular meeting with the communities, ongoing conversation, following TD responsibility throughout the process. And if we summarize the meaning of decolonial research that I had opportunity to learn is to make meaningful bridge between community and the scholar worldviews. And understanding any problem for multiple ways, understanding the complexity in a pluralistic worldviews. And spend time with the community so the community know who I am, what I'm doing. At the same time, I have opportunity to learn what community wants, how I can be tools for the community. And engaging community-based decision-making from the very beginning when I'm even thinking about it. So you need time. And decolonization, if colonization takes 100 years, decolonization may take 300 years. But we have to start from now, whatever way is possible. And considering community-based practice as a capacity building for me to transforming at the same time for the community. And understanding community needs throughout the process. Last but not least important, we all need to think how we can rethink our research as an action for me to change who I am, and action for the community to solving the problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ranjan. So we now go to the second presentation by Dr. Vanessa Chapola, which is titled Indigenous, Anti-Racist, Decolonial Feminist Knowledge, A Pathway to Sustainability. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so we're asking that where we are coming from. We're coming from Calgary. So me and Ranjan, both of us, we're coming from Calgary and we teach at Mount Royal University, Calgary. So that's Treaty 7 territory, but previously we lived in Treaty 6 territory for around a decade. So yeah, so from my presentation title, you can see that I'm going to talk about Indigenous knowledge, maybe climate change, decolonial reflective journey of an anti-racist, racialized women in Canada. Maybe it sounds like jargons, but thanks, Dr. Doctor, he actually unpacked many academic jargons already. So thank you so much for giving the foundation of my presentation. So yeah, so apart from our background that we are coming from Calgary, by seeing us, by hearing our accent, you can hear that we are not from this land. Then who we are? Yeah, we are coming from one colonial land to another colonial land, and I'm a settler of color women, and I'm coming from one colonial land to another colonial land. To understand this piece, it took my entire life, I would say, because the research I'm going to share with you today, it's 15 years journey that I have gone through after coming here in 26 territory for the first time as a newcomer. So the land I born and I grew up, I didn't know much about decolonial education. And also till now, I left my home country, it's 25 years ago, but till now, decolonial scholars and educators are in risk. So, and also, as Ranjan already explained that during his life journey, he didn't receive decolonial education from Western educational institutions either, right? So, and that's the reality. Most of us, we are the colonial product of this colonial educational system. So the reason I'm telling you all this, I'm really trying to ground myself that who I am. I think during my entire research life, around 15 years research journey, I was trying to understand actually, as a settler of color, what is my responsibility? And how does decolonial researchers' life look like? Or how does decolonization impacts my thoughts and how it's shaping me, who I am here in this land, right? So, so I consider myself as an anti-racist, decolonial, transnational feminist. Again, it sounds like academic jargons, but in a minute, I will unpack all those identities that I labelize myself, and I embrace those actually very dearly. And also, I would like to mention that I'm a lifelong land-based learner and educator. And the reason I'm saying I'm a lifelong land-based learner, because this land-based education helped me to understand the concept of decolonization, like through learning, unlearning, and relearning journey, it helped me to understand my positionality and responsibility as a settler of color for this land. And also, you know, to be an anti-racist, to be a decolonial scholar or researcher, that is also a lifelong journey that I'm becoming. Last 15 years, I have been trying to build a relationship with Indigenous people here, 86 and 87. And as a settler of color, from the beginning, it was very challenging for me to understand the common question that often I hear from my community members, that as a settler of color, why do we need to learn about Indigenous people? And what is Indigenous worldview, or what is Indigenous knowledge, right? So all these questions made me so inquisitive and also enthusiast to deconstruct all these questions, and that made me who I am today. So last 15 years, I have been working as a community activist and as an educator to bring the informal learning voices and to deconstruct the meaning of land, because, you know, as a settler of color person, I didn't grow up with this education. That what is the meaning of indigenous land, right? And why do we need to learn about it? So all these questions, actually, it was giving me so much pressure to think and to be a decolonial researcher. So in 26 territory, I worked 15 years in a community garden, in a community radio, and I'm a cultural performer. So last 15 years, I have been doing land-based cultural performances to understand and to embrace the meaning of land more deeply and more concretely. My research passion is about environmental reconciliation, decolonial feminist research, and transnational feminism and anti-racist research. And as I told you before that, I'm here to share my 15 years journey. So my anti-racist and decolonial research journey, it made me to be an advocate for indigenous knowledge, traditional ecological knowledge, and land-based education. And also I became an advocate for indigenous land rights movement, indigenous water energy sovereignty, indigenous self-determination, and I'm really trying to understand that traditional knowledge needs no validation from Western science, what Dr. already explained very clearly. And also I'm an advocate for protecting community language, art, culture, and tradition. And also I'm learning and relearning how to honor and create space for indigenous knowledge systems to flourish. And also, as a researcher, I really believe that today's world, we have done so many research. Now I feel like we do not need research anymore. Then what we need? We need action-oriented research, right? So that's my another big positionality that I advocate for. And here, I would like to share a couple of pictures from our community garden, where I worked around 12 years in 26 territory. It is situated in the center of University of Saskatchewan, student residence buildings. And this shared small piece of land, it helped me to learn various meanings about land. When I started to work as a newcomer graduate student with this land, I used to hear that the meaning of community garden is to enjoy the fresh organic veggies. And that's the way, I started my journey. But after spending 12 years in that space as a decolonial and anti-racist educator, I started to unpack the meaning of community garden in a very vast way. And it was like I'm just peeling the skin of the onions and garlics, right? The meanings were coming out in each and every aspect. So to understand this concept, actually, Homi Bhabha's, post-colonial concept, Homi Bhabha's hybridity, it really helped me to unpack the meaning of community garden or land. So this community garden, it actually, slowly, it helped me to understand the deeper meaning of land and how we can take the responsibility for this land. So I think in a broader lens, if I look at the community garden activities that I did, so that helped me to understand that community garden can be a tools to combat climate change problem. So it's such a global problem. But when I started to understand this, I tried to create more community garden around the community. So I really wanted to see it as a movement in Saskatoon City. And after working 12 years, I would say that not me, my community was very successful. Our community gardeners, they worked for this purpose very successfully. So at the beginning, when me and Ranjan, we worked together as a family. So when we started to work in that place, there were only 20 plots. But after 12 years, there were 150 plots. So that was massive, within the student community that happened. And also this small piece of land, it helped me to understand that the land is our teacher, and land, it is a place, it is it is healer. It works as a healer, and also community garden, to me, it was a classroom. So from that classroom, I have learned so much. And also I learned that the land can provide the curriculum. And the land creates also community solidarity, and the land teaches the meaning of decolonization and reconciliation. So out of this research, I became an advocate for more community garden around the community, and also this informal learnings and informal knowledge. I tried to give an academic voice, and that helped me to create so many academic articles and book chapters and books that came out. So what I'm trying to say, that my scholarship comes from the land, directly from the land. And also currently I teach about community garden and the meaning of indigenous meaning of land in the university. So often my students, they ask me, still, after writing so many books and after writing and talking about this community garden so many times, still I hear the question that how does decolonization look like, and how land can teach us the meaning of decolonization? I think that's a really tough question. Till now, I struggle to answer that question. But throughout my presentation, I think we will work on this. And also, this community garden taught me many other things that I tried to create this slide. I will suggest you to just take 30 seconds to read this while I'm drinking water. Yeah. So as you can hear that we are, from the beginning, we are talking about to take the responsibility for land. And my research actually tried to show that how we can take this responsibility. So my intention and my target was to build a relationship between theory and practice, right? So there, I think this community garden comes as an example. And here, now I'm going to share that how I try to bridge the gap between indigenous knowledge and my everyday practice, and how do I connect that, right? So during my postdoctoral research, I got the opportunity to go for Indigenous cultural camp in northern Saskatchewan. Last 3 years, we have been working with many Indigenous cultural camp, and in this cultural camp, I felt that is another deeper level that I started to learn how to engage ourselves with the land activities. So in that cultural camp, often we got the opportunity to go for medicine walk. We picked wild berries together. We went for fishing, and we processed the fish together. We went for hide tanning. And also many Indigenous elders, they came out from the community and they shared the traditional stories and their everyday life challenges and their lived experiences, how they can work for environmental reconciliation. And also we went and we got the opportunity to participate water ceremony with Indigenous community members. And also firsthand, we have learned the meaning of food sovereignty. And also we got the opportunity to engage with harvest food, art activities with the Indigenous communities. And also we did reading work together. We learned about hunting and gathering. And also often we have seen that how they engage the children with all the natural activities. For example, they are playing with frogs, they are playing with chickens, they are playing with live animals. And also we learned about the meaning of beaver, how beaver can help us to learn more about the connection with the land and environment. So a couple of pictures I'm sharing here from my Indigenous cultural camp. So in this picture, you can see that how community comes together to, here most of the Indigenous elders are here. So they are sharing their stories that how they grew up with land activities and how they became benefited and how today's world we have created human-made disasters and how these Indigenous communities are suffering in today's colonial world. Another picture, here is water ceremony pictures. These Indigenous leaders, these women, they are leading so many environmental justice movement. That's as a settler of color women, I think it was something new to me to learn from them directly, because I have learned that they are involved with Idle No More movement, water movement, fire movement, So, and also they firsthand, they have showed us that how they feel that water is sacred to them. And they have taught us that how to respect water, how to respect land. So it was, I would say that it's hard to explain in the picture, but it is really something to experience and something to, I must acknowledge that I have that privilege, that I have got this opportunity, but I would suggest to you, that if you ever get the opportunity, please try to attend this kind of water ceremonies. And here in this reading picture, you can see that how women, these are mostly women sharing circle. So women are sharing their resilient stories while they are beading, while they're talking about their everyday life challenges, right? So these are not only resilient space, these are also healing spaces and healing activities. And here you can see that the Indigenous man, he's a elder, he was talking about the benefit of hunting and gathering and what are their challenges. Due to colonial system, they are not allowed to go for hunting these days anymore. But how important for their livelihood, that's what we have learned directly from them. And also they have prepared so many handmade products that they, that's also part of their livelihood. So they shared all those stories that we have learned. Again, it's virtued art activity. So virtued, it's a plants skin that they have collected from that big tree, and then together as a community they created all these handmade crafts. This is the medicine walk that we went with the medicine women, and it was very interesting and surprising, and also I felt very bad that around the community bushes, so many important Indigenous medicines are there, but in today's colonial world and capitalistic world, we people do not know those plants. But these are lifesavers. Even you do not. The way we are dependent on Tylenols, but Tylenols are around our backyard, around the bushes. But we have lost all those basic knowledges. More pictures. This picture is from Hide Tanny. So they demonstrated us directly, step by step, that how they process the animals' hide, moose hide, and what else? Elk hide, and how they process all those hides and create products. So that's what we have learned firsthand. And this is, we went for fishing and we process the fish together as a community, and they consider fish as a medicine. Last but not the least, last picture, that's my little one who is sleeping right now. But, in our every, cultural camp activity, I took her. Really, it's not only that I didn't have any choice, also I really wanted to raise my kids with the connection of land. So we went for berry picking together, and berries are also, these are all wild berries that we come together from the region side. So I think if I want to summarize throughout my presentation what I tried to talk about, look, how women are taking the responsibility to take care of all this gentle power of today's world. women are taking care of the stories, women are taking care of all the resilient spaces, healing spaces that they're creating, right? So without acknowledging the women's leadership and women's action for taking care of our culture, our language, our land, our environment, I think that that would be a huge injustice, right? So, and that was my focus, that I really wanted to hear the stories from Indigenous women, those who are taking the lead to take care of our environment and land. So I have shared 2 books here. It's only 20 minutes that I really tried to give a quick glimpse about my research. So these 2 books will help you to unpack about our presentation today. So the books are around the table in this room. So please just have a look. And if you have any question about our presentation, feel free to discuss. And here is my email address. Thank you.
Thanks. So thanks very much for these 2 presentations, which really work nicely together. Lots of complementary themes, methodologically empirical. We have about half an hour for questions, and so questions are welcome en français aussi, si vous voulez. We have plenty of time, so I have a few questions, but I don't want to use my chair's privilege in that way. I prefer to let others speak first. Do we have any online?
I will check to see. So far, I've not seen anything online.
Okay. All right. Well, I will abuse my chair's privilege then. I have a few questions then. Perhaps a question for Ranjan on question of in sort of indigenous practices and knowledge and land-based. How much overlap is there between those 2 things? Because I can think of things that might be one and not the other, and that might be land-based but not indigenous. And so how do you envision the overlap between those 2 things?
Thank you. I think this is a critical question. Particularly, it also varies the community to community. But I see indigenous knowledge as an umbrella and land-based knowledge one stream, decolonization another stream, anti-racism is the stream. So it's very interconnected, we cannot separate. So land-based knowledge is important because if you go to the community that I had opportunity to learn, even my back home, or even if we are thinking about what is the climate crisis, and but we need to understand, without protecting land, whatever initiative we are taking is not working. And when we are talking about land, has to be indigenous or the community land-based ways they have been practicing for a long time. Without understanding it, the action or policies, it's not going to work. And that has been proven in my research, the community they are talking about. That's why it's inseparable, but it's also political understanding that land-based knowledge has to be centered, whatever we are talking about decolonization, reconciliation, or climate change. By the way, climate change or natural disaster, it doesn't exist. Because natural disaster doesn't happen automatically. It's human-created natural disaster. It is human-created climate crisis. When we are talking about climate change or natural disaster, we are pushing our responsibility to something else that doesn't exist. We are not taking it. So that's the way we use decolonization. Without decolonizing us, same thing, it's a natural disaster. It's human-created disaster. It's human-created climate crisis. What is happening in northern Saskatchewan now, huge forest fire, in Alberta, in Manitoba, according to the indigenous communities, is all human-created. How it is? First of all, taking the indigenous traditional ways of governing the forest, they used to do it. Another way is significant to understand how residential school created this problem. Because residential school taken the indigenous children and forced to not to learn about indigenous language, indigenous ways of managing the land, indigenous growing of the food, So many indigenous communities in Laron or the other northern communities, they are seeing the direct connection with residential school because residential school is separated between the person and their relationship with the land, language, and traditional land-based culture. And that's why the indigenous community that I had the opportunity to learn what is happening forest fire is directly human created because indigenous people are not allowed to practice their traditional forest burning that they used to do it for long time. The second, many indigenous youth, they don't know how to practice it. So that's why when you are talking about forest fire, it's directly connected with the course indigenous, they don't have governance right, practicing there, and the same time residential schooling.
Thank you. That's an interesting link to the forest fires as well. Yes, there's a question. Please introduce yourself as well if you can.
My name is Avinya, and my question is around the fact that, like, obviously a lot of us here are of the belief that decolonial theory and this kind of work is valid and should be done. But when you go into spaces where you're being an advocate or you're interacting with people who might be in industry, who might not have the same kind of philosophies or beliefs, what do you feel like has worked best in terms of like making what you're saying heard and making them see what you're saying?
We'll take two questions, right? That might be good. There was another question in the corner. Yeah.
Merci déjà pour la qualité de votre présentation. Ali Arbi, je suis étudiant à la faculté des sciences sociales.
Est-ce que vous pouvez parler un tout petit peu plus fort pour que le micro puisse capter
La question, en fait, c'est de savoir est-ce qu'il y a une relation entre la colonisation et le racisme? Parce que nous avons des pays qui n'ont pas colonisé d'autres pays, mais qui pratiquent en fait le racisme. Et ma deuxième question, quel est le moyen le plus efficace en fait pour lutter contre le racisme?
So I'll translate. So two questions. One was about what is the linkage between colonialism and racism in your view, especially in the case of countries that were not colonial powers in their own right, but where we have histories and practices of racism. And then the second question was about what is the most effective means of fighting against these particular forms of racism in your view.
I think let's make it simple. All these presentations and books and articles and academic jargons, let's make it simple. I think I'm here just to say two things. Throughout my entire research journey, it's taking my entire life, right? I have learned that we just need to respect the land. We need to respect the women. It's too hard to understand, but our positionality and our practice is to rape the land, to rape the women. So now think, which education we need and which system of education is teaching you to rape the women and rape the land. So now we need to think collectively that where to start this action and how, period.
Thank you. Look at this building where we are standing on. Just take out 300 years. What was here? This building is built on ecocide. How much we learned. So when we are talking is that there is no colonial history. We are living in the colonial world. We don't understand it. Colonization is embedded within ourselves. And decolonization, for your question, is not something else that we can borrow and use it. It starts from the inside of me. First of all, as I explained, to knowing who we are in this land, what is happening. Of course, knowing, the uncomfortness, and also same time the making it celebration. For example, today's we sharing, we are learning from each other. It's a celebration according to decolonial scholar Dr. Mari Botis, because every opportunity is a light. And we need to build a community to use that light. Otherwise, we are losing the opportunity, and the future generation, they will blame us that we didn't take the responsibility. So decolonization start from us, start from our family, and start within the circle. We cannot make change, which when we are talking, we are using the decolonization is done. Actually, we didn't understand the meaning of decolonization. If decolonization takes not making us uncomfortable, if decolonization doesn't help us to change who we are not doing enough.
Callum, you had a question, yeah.
So I actually have two. I have one from the Q&A. So firstly, this is directed to both of you guys, but for doctoral students specifically, if they're committed to decolonial research, research involving Indigenous peoples, they might still face those barriers related to supervision, research design, and the expectations of, say, a university institution. If you're trying to decolonize your research as, say, a doctorate student, how do you sort of maintain the balance between the objective research and then what you're trying to pursue? A lot of sometimes it seems like decolonial or community engaged work could be dismissed as advocacy. How can if you guys have some advice about how could doctoral students navigate the challenges between pursuing the objective research and, you know, trying to decolonize research while remaining true to their ethical beliefs?
It's a very challenging. When I was doing my PhD, I faced many times. At that time, even decolonization was not prominent. Now it's prominent. So I discussed with Dr. Sean Wilson. He's very well-known Indigenous scholar, Dr. Maribodis, Dr. Linda Smith. All of that we discussed together. And it's difficult because the colonial system, institution, they are not ready yet. So we need to take as much as the decolonial course, anti-racism course. First, this is the beginning. Then we can start. At the same time, we need to be political to choosing our supervisor and committee member. We cannot just think, we can choose randomly then doing the decolonial research. Then actually trouble comes up because many researchers, they don't understand it. And then when they're coming to be sitting in the community, it becomes more challenging. So that's why, according to their suggestion, we have to be political to taking the courses and choosing the committee member. The PhD we are doing, if we want to do it, and my recommendation is to talk. If we want to work with the Indigenous people, it's not that I'm going there and doing the research. We need to talk, build a relationship, understand. At the same time, we need to also going for the PhD with the people, those who understand it deeply. Otherwise, as a student, it's very difficult to convince the committee that we want to make a balance. It's not about the balance. It's about political stand that many PhD student or master student may not have ability to take it. So I would say, talk to the people, those who understand it, and include them in the committee. And I was, at first time during my comprehensive, I was faced, how do you think the Indigenous knowledge and Western knowledge, they are the same? I faced in my comprehensive, my Indigenous, the committee member, they challenged that person and kicked out that person from my team. If I wouldn't have that Indigenous, the professor in my team, I would be expelled from that comprehensive. So we need a support. That's why we need to build a community to understand it, to bring that decolonial understanding to the academia and choosing politically. Otherwise, it's very difficult. I understand that question. Where is the question coming from? But at the same time, I don't want to make it a balance. The ethical, what does the ethics mean? If ethics doesn't talk about the community needs, what is the ethics means if my ethics is not supporting what I want to be?
And Professor Chapala, do you want to add anything to, I guess, sort of the tensions between, research institutions being quite formal and then at the same time trying to perform research that really is about decolonization? Do you feel like there's a way to resolve that tension, and any suggestions for doctorate students who are trying to do that right now?
It's a very important question and very complex. Complex to answer, complex to teach, complex to imbibe and practice in your everyday action. But again, it's doable. That's what I have learned throughout my research journey. So I would say anti-racist education and decolonial education, it goes parallelly. So anti-racist education, it helps us to develop those lenses to deconstruct myself first. So if we do not learn how to deconstruct my privileges, then it's really hard, right? So mindset, I mean, to change our mindset and to learn how to deconstruct our socialization process and how class, race, gender, religious faith all are impacting your upbringing and your understanding. It's important to understand all those mechanisms through post-colonial, anti-colonial, through decolonial education. And last but not the least, I would say that we need to start somewhere. It's not going to happen after finishing 10 PhD courses. So it's a lifelong journey. So if we start somewhere, it will take you to a path where you will start to feel it that you are becoming a colonial scholar or researcher.
Thank you guys very, very much. I actually had a personal question. That one was just from the chat, but I think it's more to Professor Datta, but regarding a lot of the time, it seems like there are ways of land governance that came from Indigenous people that they could mitigate some of our current climate issues, not necessarily solve them. But for instance, if we hadn't restricted cultural fire burnings and controlled burnings, maybe our forest would be in a better position today. Maybe if we had less just constant foresting and then monocropping culture, maybe we'd have healthier forests that could withstand fires more. I was specifically thinking when you were talking about the oil pipelines and how much that had leached into the surrounding soil, and how when Indigenous people looked at it, it wasn't just the water, it was also how it affected the ecosystems in future. Did you see from those communities any methods of like mitigation that they had? Was there anything that they were trying to suggest to try and detoxify, I guess, their ecosystems?
The Indigenous people, they have been living in the land. Their knowledge still there. And their elder knowledge keepers, they have living with the lots of important knowledge, right? And one of the elders, I was 97 years old, he said, I have been living in this land for a long time, very sustainable way. And now look at the community. It's more than 90% people are socially dependent. If you look at the only impact, you do not see the root cause of the colonization. For example, Athabasca Lake, the Dene First Nation near the Fondo Lake area, they have been very sustainable. And when uranium mine gone, and the uranium mine was there, they contaminated the water, land, plant, animal. They cannot drink the water, they cannot use eat the fish, they cannot hunt. So if we look at the only impact, you are blaming the victim. Now uranium, there is nobody there, right? It became the ghost city. And the community is there, but there's knowledge still there. So the Indigenous people know the solution. That's why I agree with Jebunesa that we need action, responsibility to learn and implement those before the knowledge is gone. That's why the Indigenous elder and knowledge keeper suggestion to know their knowledge, the land-based knowledge, how we can protect together and use it, not just only for the academic publication or not only just community the discussion. We need to use it, implement it in the policy and practice.
We got a bit more time, so yes, Christian.
Hi, I'm Bruno. I'm also here a student in political science. Thank you both for your presentation today. You both talked about topic of and provided the different, I would say, definition or meaning about what it meant for giving the land back or land back. So Dr. Datta, you said it's our obligation to the land, and Dr. Chapola said it's learning from the land or something like education. And I quite like both, the way you framed it, and I like your example of the community garden. I'm also doing it here and in Hull and Gatineau. And I think the learning from the land is very powerful in terms of um, of how acknowledging, not like just acknowledging, but how giving importance to taking care of the land. And one thing I was wondering, because you both kind of gave, I would say, different complementary definition of what it meant for land back. And yours reminded me a bit of Leanne Simpson when she said land back means, not just giving back piece of a land, but also being on the land so that you can learn and take care of it. So I think both your definition kind of join what she was saying. And I was wondering how we can, implement policies to, at government level or municipal level or every level, so that we can enact this meaning. It's not just like to give back a piece of land and then you go and live there. I guess we already did that, and it's not necessarily working so well. But what I meant is, I'm giving an example in Quebec. There's a bill that is currently being debated, Bill 97, to give about a third of all the forests to industries for cutting woods. So, and it's not been approved yet, but I think it's in the process. So, and we don't really want to go there, I would say, but are there like ways we could, have policies where we can enact what you were saying about giving the land back? So maybe both, if you want to say something.
That is very important question. How we can transform it? How we can use our research that make an action? So what we are doing, the community garden is one example. We got small funding from City of Calgary, City of Saskatoon, or other small. So what we did, first we need education to the young generation. So we created anti-racist youth-led climate action project. So we created with the Black, refugee, and racialized immigrant youth-led climate project. So what we do, we invite Indigenous elder, racialized elder, and teachers. And also same time, we request our young generation from the Indigenous, the BIPOC communities to reflect what you have learned and make a project to the school. So this is a starting point to the educating, because without education, our leader will not be responsible. Because and if we can build the education, if we can build the education within our young generation, if they can take it to the school, and school community, they can see the impact. And the great example actually I recently did with one of the Indigenous community in Thailand, Chiang Mai. The Indigenous women, they are taking the leadership, teaching the young generation, changing the school curriculum. And school curriculum, the young generation, they are making movement to changing the political party's agenda according to the community needs. And they are showing how traditional land-based fire burning system is protecting the thousands acres of from the forest fire. That other parts of the world, they don't do it. This is the good example. And we are trying to build it. As you know, our education curriculum and the school system, not only in Bangladesh, even here, our children, they are not having the opportunity to learn why Indigenous land-based knowledge is important as a part of the action. Many immigrant comes, even my own community, they do not see the importance of the land-based culture. And this is not their fault, this is structural. And all immigrant, most of the immigrant, even my community, they want to be white. By the way, white is not about color, it's about power. It's about power that I am the better than you. As a Bangladeshi, our culture is better than India, Pakistan, or other African subcontinent. The multiculturalism making us a competition within us without understanding our responsibility. We eat and watch dance, and we think we know it without going to the deep. So education, first of all, need to we challenge the settler education system, that the land-based education or the colonial history, what happened to the land, and we don't understand that colonization is not there. Colonization is not that somebody else should come and colonize within ourselves. How we understand it, how we practice it, how we do research. So education, I would say, and we have to start whatever way is possible, right? So we are using the small kind of project and writing together. And writing and publication is, since we are the researcher, we don't have other way. But we are making small video by Youth Led, and also taking Indigenous elder knowledge keeper to the conference so that they can teach us. So whatever way possible that we can change it. And community garden, she was mentioning that we had opportunity to bring the elders as well. And blanket exercise method, that means Indigenous elder here, they comes and they explain what happened to the land we are standing on, so that we understand which native land is important and how we can see the diversity instead of the monoculture, mono farming system, that growing food is not the intention of the community garden. Community garden is main intention to building the community, to decolonize ourselves. How to, the plot, when we started, it was only 10 plot. Now it's 28 different countries. It was 120 plots. Understanding that each other needs. Understanding that we need to work together. Otherwise, I will be the best Bangladeshi immigrant in Calgary than the other people. And when we are talking best Bangladeshi, actually, we are also hating each other. And within Bangladeshi, I think I'm the best. So we need to challenge the multicultural education system that is not working. Because multiculturalism started from the colonization. They opened the indigenous land without indigenous people consent, without respecting the treaties, and still going on that process.
And I would like to add here, like within colonial education system, I mean, colonial education, it teaches us hierarchy among knowledge world. Like I'm coming from a world where I mean, since my childhood, I learned that science education is supreme, and the liberal arts and humanities are very inferior education. So my bachelor is in sociology, then social work, then women and gender studies. This is my field. So throughout my life, I heard that these are, it's like, I'm a brainless woman. I heard this, I'm quoting. Brainless women, they are studying all these subjects. And those who are supreme brain, they go for medical school, engineering school, and other science disciplines. So what I'm trying to say here, that who taught this and why? And who is benefiting by introducing this kind of hierarchical and problematic system? Colonizers are benefiting. Capitalist system is benefiting from this problematic system, right? So when I started to work with community garden and community spaces, I'm a community engaged scholar. Again, I heard the similar story, that what kind of PhD is that? That you are doing, that, oh, you are working with community garden and then your PhD is done, is it? I heard this, excuse me. I took a position to give a big answer to all those ignorant souls, to say that out loud, that I did this research to give an academic voice, and I did it on protest, right? So our system is problematic. We need to keep saying it out loud without any fear. So we need to create those decolonial spaces to talk about it. No matter what, how many people are listening to you? No matter what, how many policymakers are on the table? If they are not on the table, let's take the initiative, how we can bring them on the table. And policymakers doesn't mean only who will help us to create more community garden. The institution we are sitting here, this institution doesn't give us the permission to talk about it. So let's start to decolonize our classroom first. And throughout my research journey, when I couldn't talk within my institution, I took personal initiative to create those decolonial spaces. So the community garden, as I said before, that when I started this work, I knew that it's a space just for producing fresh veggies. But no, So ultimately, it turned into a social justice space. And it's not, I did it. We did it together. So we engaged the community members. We engaged and I would say that we encouraged, and also community members, and also we encourage community members to embrace this informal knowledge. And yeah, now we're here. This is your answer. And this knowledge is into the academia. It's in the classroom. It's in my syllabus. My students are studying it and they're impressed. They are taking the lead. They're the change makers. So we need to start somewhere.
Thanks so much. We're really almost out of time, but we have time for one more question. So yes.
Just wondered what you thought of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and the duty to consult in terms of sort of the international view of this. Well, a lot of this has developed in North America, where, as someone pointed out, there was colonialism and an existing Indigenous people, but the country of Canada, so the US doesn't have a history of colonial, and then the decolonial process in Africa. In Latin America, there's much less appreciation of Indigenous rights than in North America. But this international declaration is having some effect on Scandinavia and from others. But there's also a backlash against it, or a reluctance to, because of particularly resource projects and all of the things that are going in Canada now, and in many other countries, that there should not be a veto over such national development, but there should be a duty to consult and to integrate, Indigenous perspectives. But that depends very much on which country you're talking about. Canada has an advanced system, the US less so. But so how do you think this is going to work out in the future in terms of the debate, particularly over important resource projects in Canada going forward?
First, I need to make it clear, we are not here to talk about Indigenous issue on behalf of Indigenous people. As a racialized scholar, racialized color scholar, I'm talking about my responsibility. And UNDP declaration and TRC call for action, this is the guideline. That in Canada, they signed in 2015, they didn't sign in at the beginning, they signed it. And we can learn it. But if you go back to the country that I came from, they are not following that 2008 declaration or any of these, right? So question, again, if we decolonize first from ourselves, the UN declaration or TRC call for action, it becomes part of who we are. But if we transform ourselves, we become part of the community and understand our responsibility. And this UNDP declaration, once we learned it, embedded it, and once we go back, or our scholar, we cannot, of course, once we go back, we cannot use it. But it helps us to start somewhere the conversation. It may be change, we can see the change after 50 years, but we need to talk about it. And Indigenous people, they can guide us what we need to do according to the land. For example, I came for the TD7 territory. They want to follow their TD7 territories regulation. And the unceded also, they have their own regulation. So I think we, as a settler of color, I see my responsibility to learn it and also listen to the community. Even the community I came from, we had a responsibility to learn. It's not their fault that they didn't get the opportunity. This is state government responsibility to make us learn, incorporate in our education system in the universities. And we all together can advocate for that changes. Otherwise, nothing is going to change automatically.
So we have run out of time, unfortunately. We can in thanking Dr. Ranjan Datta and Dr.